We are gathered here to fill you with fear and give you a treat for your ears as we invade your mind with our scary rhymes and some tales that can be gory. As you bear witness and sit here and listen to our poetic horror stories.
Hello, PHS crew, and we want to welcome you to our PHS Deep Sleep Horror A.S.M.R Nightmare Fuel. We want you to lay back, relax, and just listen with your eyes closed to the soothing sounds of my voice as I tell you a bedtime horror story. This would be best to listen to with earbuds or headphones in the dark. We want you to feel the full effects. We want the hair to stand up on your neck. We want to send down your spine tingling chills and give you a horrifying thrill. While you lay in your bed and drift away to a deep sleep, let the darkness envelop you as we invade your dreams. We have a truly terrifying tale for your listening pleasure that will disturb your soul. But we promise you it will be fine, as long as you remember it's only a dream and you can wake up at any time. That is, as long as you don't die. I read somewhere that if you die in your dream, then you will die in real life. And believe me, we don't want that to happen to you. Because if it does, then you can't come back to watch our next video. But I digress. Let's start with our horror story that we hope will give you a terrifying nightmare. PHS presents Night Terror.
This is just a friendly reminder to please like and comment to let us know how we are doing so far. We would love to hear from you all. And if you're new, please subscribe and become a part of the PHS crew. And we thank you.
Paul wakes up every night screaming in a pool of sweat from terror to a nightmare. Paul's chest heaves up and down quickly because he's short of breath. Paul feels tired from running away from the monster in his head. Now Paul's bed and sheets are drenched. Paul tries to steady himself by taking some deep breaths. Paul tries to regulate his heartbeat rate that is racing wildly in his chest. Paul sits up in his bed as he glances around his room. Paul looks at the time, but then Paul notices something is wrong. Paul notices his bedroom door is closed. One thing about Paul, he hates to sleep with his door closed because Paul lives all alone. Suddenly, Paul starts to hear scratching sounds coming from under his bed. The scratching is starting to fill Paul with dread. Paul wants to move, but he can't. because he is paralyzed with fear. Paul feels afraid and he's scared. Now Paul can hear scratching coming from behind him in the wall. The scratching sounds are loud, rhythmic, and persistent. Paul thinks to himself, whatever it is scratching, it has to be really big. And in Paul's imagination, he can see the thing. Paul can see it, and it has razor-sharp claws. Suddenly, Paul's walls, floors, and bed start to shake. As the plaster from his walls crumbled, Paul could see his walls were starting to crack as pieces tumbled. The cracks started running across Paul's walls, floor, and his door. Suddenly, Paul heard a mighty roar. The shaking was so violent, it began to split Paul's bedroom into two. Paul was in a state of shock because Paul didn't know what he should do. Paul quickly thinks to himself, should he try to run to his shut bedroom door and try to escape? Or should he stay in his bed and just wait? Paul thought maybe it would all just stop. Maybe it's just an earthquake. But Paul was wrong, and his decision was quickly made for him when he saw the monstrous claws-like hands creeping from underneath his bed.
If she ran into the killer, her life would be at stake. So quietly, she makes her way around, doing her best not to make any loud sounds. She doesn't want to alert the killer to her whereabouts. She walked up a set of stairs to the second floor, where she found some bedrooms. There were 4.
Suddenly, Paul's bed is now being lifted up high into the air as it began to angle downward by the monster hands. The monster was trying to dump Paul into its gaping maw. All Paul could do was hang on for dear life, trying not to slip and fall. Paul was trying hard not to let go. Suddenly, out of the blue, a thought hit Paul. Paul suddenly recognized what was truly going on, because Paul had been here before. Paul was still in his bed, trapped in a deep sleep. Paul was stuck in a REM state. Paul was stuck in a hellish nightmare. REM stands for Rapid Eye Movement. It's a stage of sleep that happens when you have increased brain activity, which occurs while you dream. But unfortunately for Paul, he was stuck in a REM state nightmare. A terrible place to be. This is the monster Paul had been dreaming of and running away from. Paul thought he was awake and he had to escape. the monster caught up to Paul. The monster pretended to be Paul's safe place, his bedroom. This is why Paul's bedroom door was closed. Paul never woke up. Paul had been dreaming all along. Once Paul had his epiphany, he was still asleep, trapped inside his dream. This is when Paul's worst nightmare happened. Paul couldn't hold on anymore to his bed. Paul's hands slipped, and Paul fell. Paul fell down into the cold, black, dark, empty inkiness of the abyss. Paul fell into eternity, into the belly of the beast. Paul was swallowed up whole. Suddenly, Paul woke up screaming in a pool of sweat, back into his nightmare, his night terror.